Welcome out to It's All Been Trucked Before. This time, Deep Space Nine, the alternate. Deep Space Nine on It's All Been Trucked Before. Hey, if you want to alternate or read, I know it's the alternate. There's plenty of alternatives to us, but we want you to get on board with us. Patreon.com/IBD. And who knows, you might get on Patreon.com and be like, oh, I want to get in on some other Star Trek stuff. That's cool. But sign up with us. You get to the video versions. You get all the It's All Been Done radio hour content. You get our extra content. And you get a lot of cool other swag. I'm going to call it swag. And just by signing up, it don't take much. Go there, patreon.com/IBD. And you're always our primary, but this is the alternate on It's All Been Trucked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trucked Before. Your skeleton crew is here.
This is Steven.
Jimmy-Jerome. Keith is going to join us at some point, I believe. But not here yet. So we're going to start without him rather than start super late. Like we did last time that you guys wouldn't know really late last week. We're going to start on time and he can hopefully join us.
Yes, sir.
And apologies for last week if you're watching on Patreon that you only get video for the second half of the podcast because somebody screwed up and did not turn the video on the way they should have. And apparently,
we had a new guest, so it'll build that suspense.
I put a still frame photo for the first half, so there's something.
Nice.
And so you can still watch the video version. You just got to go like 30 minutes in before the video kicks in.
Nice.
Anyway, that's already made and set up. But today we're discussing the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode, the alternate first impressions.
I had these backwards, of course. Oh, because I was reading Make It So. Sorry. Even more behind the curve. The alternate. I am 3.
Want to do them in the other order? I mean, we can't.
No, this is fine. No, I just I've been reading
the release order, but
so sorry. 3. Yeah, first impression. You know, you've been talking about we're going to get to know more about Odo and all that stuff, and we finally did. And in a weird, it was a weird episode. It was, but I like that we did get a little more light on Mr. Odo or Odo. I guess I don't know if I should call him Mr. It's hard to say.
You can, but you don't need to.
Yeah, Odo. And yeah, I thought a lot of interesting stuff. I did like that, we get into they talk about the paternal stuff and all that. And I like that we get into that relationship with him and our man, Dr. Mora. Keith's not here with the graphic, but I wouldn't say it hung the moon, but I did like it. I did like delving into Odo's origins. And actually, I guess we'll continue to see because I don't know. We'll continue to see his species and all that stuff. So,
well, he barely scratched the surface of his species, and they will be a major part of the show in its later half.
Oh, here,
actually, by the end of season 2, I believe they become a pretty important part.
And I kind of like it coming out in just little drips and drabs. Actually, I'm definitely the person that in TOS is like get to know your Vulcan. But yeah, these guys don't necessarily know Odo that well. I mean, Quark kind of does, I guess, but not everybody
know him.
The same history.
They know him, but they know nothing of his species, nor does he, which is really interesting. They really leaned into, I remember when the show originally premiered, they really leaned into Odo doesn't know who he is or where he's from. Like, even his action figure, like the description of the character, he has no idea. Odo just means unknown. That's all we got.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure they knew from the beginning where they were going with it, but by this point in the series, I'm pretty sure they knew where they were going with it because, like I said, by the end of season 2, that starts to come out in a much bigger way, and it really drives a lot of the rest of the series, as you'll see. So we'll get to that, but I won't say much.
As the person who's always like, just tell me what's going on here. I thought the mystery from this one was decent because I definitely didn't know guess what was going on, what the deal was. So
I do think if they'd stretched out for 7 seasons, what is Odo? Where did he come from? And then at the end of the series, finally get to it, we'd be pretty frustrated.
Yes.
But
you're right.
I promise you, we've got like the rest of this season to wait and then you're good. So, and we're going to find out more than you ever wanted to know about his species. Trust me. You will not be going, man, I wish they'd give us more of his species. You'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Not in a bad way. Definitely not. But yeah. Anyway, so my first impression of this episode is, it did not reveal that much about his species, but I liked the interplay and what it informed about Odo as a character. the relationship with Dr. Mora that we'll talk about, and just the way a child sees things differently than a parent. Because as much as it's easy to try to dismiss Odo as not a child, like, oh, he's just an alien life form, they understand he was essentially a child. Because he had no memory, because he did not have a distinct personality or anything. He was essentially a child. And I think children can remember parents being meaner than they probably were.
For sure.
At times.
For sure.
And I don't, and I'm not excusing all of Dr. Mora's behavior. I think we've already seen enough from other episodes that have us going, well, he could have been better. But at the same time, they admit Dr. Mora didn't even know Odo was sentient when he found them. It took a while for him to figure that out. And then he adjusted his behavior accordingly. And all I see here is a father who misses his son that wants to know him better and really cares about him. And I love that take, especially because what we've heard about him before this episode, not by name, but we've heard that Odo was like tortured in a lab. And getting this other side of it is really interesting. And I applaud the writers for coming up with this framework. And Odo's behavior at the end is not, to me, a beaten down prisoner with the syndrome.
Right. Stockholm syndrome. Yeah.
Stockholm syndrome. Yeah. It's, I'm a child and I needed context. And now I've got context and I can move forward in a positive way from that. So, yeah. No, it's cool. We'll start the episode with a really, really fun scene between Quark and Odo.
Yeah.
Like any scene between Quark and Odo is generally fun, but this one I thought was especially fun. We find out that holosuites were invented by Ferengis, first of all. Yeah. So Starfleet dabbled in it, we saw in the animated series, but they wear like backpacks and crap. It's probably the Ferengi that came in and made it smooth because they had the motivation.
Well, it's probably the whole like VHS, any advance in technology, porn ends up leading the way. And so I'm sure they were fumbling around, and then the Ferengi came in and were like, this is how we make money, and boom. And they found the way there, and then things got better from there. Yeah.
And Barclay really wished holosuites were maintained on Starfleet ships instead of holodecks, which are probably the sanitized version of a holosuite, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Like there's probably limits to holodecks that holosuites don't have.
No doubt. Yeah, sweet. Yeah. I think suites just sound dirtier, but maybe that's just because
like a hotel room.
The one who's always saying it. Yeah,
like a hotel room. Yeah.
But
it's very clear that people get up to sex in Quark's holosuites, whereas on the Enterprise D, it's only implied that Riker maybe gets up to some stuff with consent from the holograms, unlike Barclay.
I love the discussion of the Ferengi death ritual.
Yeah, which we knew before from previous episodes. So good building upon it.
Yeah.
And just the whole Odo messing with him to start a collection. Then we tell Quark is skeptical to the point where Odo actually is ready to buy. And he's like, are you serious? Okay, well now I'm fooled. Now I'm on board. And then Odo takes the rug out, which is so delicious. I forgot. I was like, is he playing? Or he's got to be playing, but he really play?
Yeah, it's a fun scene, especially Odo's the rest of the episode, but it's one of those, and it was a long cold open for this one, I think. But yeah, I enjoyed it very much. Just very funny and learning more about that stuff. And just, whenever Quark gets caught in something, he takes the hit and then he just comes right back, which is great.
Well, he's all about deny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, Odo clearly doesn't accept his claim of ignorance. Do you accept his claim of ignorance?
No.
He knows that guy wasn't dead.
Yeah. And I loved him playing the victim. Like, oh, I can't believe this happened to me. I had no idea.
I demand an investigation. It was like, yep, there'll be one. No problem. But so what's cool about that scene is, yes, it's totally played for laughs. It's totally played for the dynamic of Quark and Odo and furthering and reminding us. But then we get immediately Dr. Mora's perspective on the scene from an outsider coming in who doesn't know them, is like, this guy's trying to be your friend and you're shutting him down. And I love that outsider perspective of it, which I think, while it is not exactly true, because Odo says, like, he's a con man, he's not worth knowing. And I think for the most part, Odo believes that. Like, there is a glimmer of truth in there, though, that they could be friends if Odo would just open up a little more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we see them. We enjoy. I guess. Well, maybe we don't see them as friends. Well, we kind of do. We talked about it, but
Frenemies.
Frenemies. Yeah, on some level. Yeah, and Quark's probably worn this jacket before, but I love his Partridge Family Bus jacket that he was wearing here. Fashion. I'm sure he's worn it before, but last night I especially, and maybe and this goes in my next note, which is also another behind the curtain thing. But so this is one of those weeks where I was like, I gotta watch it tonight. I'm not gonna have time tomorrow before we do this, and it's like, it's 11 o'clock at night. But when I start, I'm always like, this is when I used to watch. Whether it was when I first watched COS, I feel like it was late at night. And I was little, so it was probably like 10 o'clock. But, and then later it was 11. And then in my mind, DS9 and TNG were always like, we're going to show them at 7, then we're going to show them at 11. And then on Sunday night, we're going to show them late again. So to me, it's perfect. And I think that fits in with with the feel of this scene, actually, because to me, TNG always feels like it's the middle of the day. DS9 to me always feels like it's nighttime. And I know that's part of the design and part of the feel of the show, but I enjoy that part, that aspect. And again, I was literally watching it late at night. Whenever I watched TNG, it was late. And the first couple of years, or as a kid watching TOS, I remember doing that. So and I enjoyed that. So
Dr. Mora enters, played by James Sloyan. Sloyan, who's best known for The Thing, the film.
Oh,
2 episodes playing 2 different characters in Next Gen. And he will play this part in 2 episodes of DS9, 1 this season, 1 in season 5. So 3 years from now. So there's some follow-up for him.
Yeah, and he was one of those character actors, which is going to be a theme, I think, the next couple of weeks. But he was on everything in the late 70s, early 80s. Still with us also. And
MacGyver, Murder, She Wrote, Baywatch, Leap, Beverly Hills 90210, Mission Impossible.
Buck Rogers in the 25th century.
So much. You will be considered Voyager as well.
Yeah, always good. He often played like a sleazy guy, but in this, which kind of colored me from the beginning in this episode, to be fair, which is like, oh, he's going to be the sleazy guy, but he ends up being actually pretty good guy at the end of the day.
I think so. I mean, I think there's room for interpretation, but
I will say he ends up, he's going to be ranked at the end of the episode, but I think those are my feelings early on, and maybe they were colored by my experience with the actor. But I always enjoyed him as an actor, with it comedically and dramatically. A guy who committed, a working actor, and still, like I said, still is. So still acting.
So I was looking at his other Star Trek roles, and like I say, he's got 2 episodes. One is we haven't seen yet. It's coming up in Next Gen, season 7.
Oh, yeah.
That one is a very interesting role. So you'll have to see. And it'll be in alien makeup. He's already played a Romulan and an Admiral, but he's got something coming up that's very, very interesting.
I did see that, and I kind of glossed by it. And then we see him again as Dr. Mora?
One more time in season 5.
Okay.
So 3 years from now, or about 3 years, because we're doing double seasons right now.
That's true.
So about 3 years from now, we'll come back around to him, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm glad there's some follow-up. I liked the promise of the pen pal thing. I'm skipping all the way to the end right now, but I like the promise that they're going to have a relationship, and I'm glad that we'll get to see at least one more glimpse of that relationship, and he doesn't just disappear forever. Because if this was any other show, Next Gen or whatever, I feel like Data's decided to pen pal his adoptive mother, and that never followed up on, So,
yep.
I thought Dr. Mora looks a little bit similar to Odo. And I kind of feel like Odo gets his look from that. If you look at the hairline, I think Odo modeled his humanoid look on Dr. Mora, which is really good casting to cast somebody that looks just enough alike to make that leap.
That's good, because I kept looking at Mr. Sloyan's hair, and I was like, oh man, that's a weird look for him. But now that makes a big total sense why he looked like that. Yeah, that does make sense.
After that, we get a wonderful scene of Jake, Sisko, and Ben in their quarters, where Jake's complaining about, when am I ever going to use Klingon opera? And Ben's like, well, you may work with a Klingon someday. When did you use it, Dad? Not since I was your age. Which is universal, but at the same time, I almost felt like I'm sure at this point, they didn't know they were going to bring Worf on Deep Space Nine.
Right.
But I almost felt like it was foreshadowing of Sisko being like, you may work with a Klingon someday.
And I keep forgetting the word was going to show up at some point. So yeah,
we still got a season and a half.
It's got a while. Okay. Yeah, but I enjoyed that. And then I was like, does this fit in the rest of the episode? But I'm also fine that it doesn't. Just like the cold open. It's fine to have these moments.
We did not have enough good scenes between Ben and Jake in season 1. So add them in wherever you want to add them. They're always welcome to me. Dr. Mora may have discovered Odo's origin, so that's what he's come for. And I know, at one hand, you could say he's just trying to use Odo to get his runabout and get what he wants. But on the other hand, I don't think so. I think he just took that opportunity as an excuse to see Odo. Like, he probably wanted to see Odo, but didn't have a good reason to go visit him until this came up, and then he used it as an excuse.
I love that whole scene is essentially like, Dad, can I borrow the car? Dad, can I borrow the runabout?
I mean, son, can I borrow the car?
Yeah, right. We've had the runabout conversations before. This one was, a little different. So yeah, that was great.
Then Odo's trying to tell a story to Dax, but Dr. Mora keeps interrupting her. At that point, I was almost annoyed by him for a little bit. But yeah, the whole story about Odo forming a perfect beaker replica as his reveal, that was pretty cool. And also, I guess beakers are a lot more simple than a humanoid face, but if he was able to master that with no practice, and now he's had years of practice and he still can't get a face right, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good point. And he's not as advanced as Amon from.
That's true.
That was 6, right?
Yes,
Undiscovered. That was 6, right? Yeah, Undiscovered Country. Yeah, if only.
Yeah.
I guess if everyone got that advanced, they'd all just be Amon.
Yeah. So while they're trying to investigate, and forgive me if I'm skipping ahead because I have the fewest notes I think I ever had.
I don't have a ton, so yeah, I have a couple to go back to, but we'll keep rolling.
So we get to the paralyzing gas that hits them.
Yeah,
it's affecting Dax and Mora, but not Odo. I really liked finding out more about Odo's species and how he's different than most humanoids and all of that.
Yeah, and it makes sense, and I did think about that in the sense of, like I used with TOS and stuff, like, oh, Spock's a superhero kind of a thing, like, oh, it doesn't bother him because he's a Vulcan, doesn't, these kind of things, and just to go 20 years into our future, Strange New Worlds has gotten into a little bit of that, and we've talked about it. Not necessarily Spock being a superhero; it's definitely not as much on there, but there were definitely one of the more recent episodes where he's like, I got to do this. It's like, well, why? And his thing was like, I'm a Vulcan and you guys are human, or I'm half human. I'm half whatever. But yeah, I thought the same. I felt the same way. Yeah.
So they find a life form on that planet that they bring back to the science lab. It's like the key that Odo found, the shape-shifting key that he found in a previous episode.
Yeah.
Where it's similar to his species, but again, it's not another member of his species. They stopped short of introducing another changeling.
Yeah. Yeah, which, and maybe it might have been somewhere in here where I was like, you know what? I like the mysteries, because I feel like there's a couple mysteries going on at that point. They end up coalescing, but yeah, at that point, we're still not sure what's going on.
Yeah. And of course, the whole science lab gets trashed. You can see that dome is broken from the inside. Yeah. So immediately I'm thinking it's an actual changeling. I thought it was a little early to see an actual changeling, but that's what I assumed. It was. And it was still sealed to get out through the vents, kind of like that earlier episode with the changeling on board.
Well, and when we get to, I'm jumping ahead to O'Brien finding it. He's like, well, it's dead. I'm like, how do you know that's the life form? And it makes sense. He'd be like, well, it's got to be. It's probably it. And I'm like, I don't think it is. And apparently I was right for him.
Dax has a scene where she talks about she had to sneak out of the infirmary in a hospital gown because Dr. Bashir hid her clothes. I mean, I want to talk about the other Bashir scene while we're talking about this, where she asks him if he wants to get her back to Gina, and he goes, my replicator or yours? And she shuts him down, and he's like, oh, well, I'm going to stop chasing her, and maybe that'll make her understand. And that was so cringy. So damn cringy.
It was really... Yeah.
Him hiding her clothes wasn't as cringy because I'm like, okay, that's kind of a smart doctor move to keep her in there.
Right.
But when taken together, it makes him such a creep. And I thought we were past creepy Bashir.
It maybe this speaks to the time or just whatever, or just that, Terry Farrell's a very attractive woman, obviously. And but I wrote down both these things. One is, did she have to give us the detail that it wouldn't close in the back? I know it's a joke, and it's still a long running joke. And, as an older person who spends a lot of time in hospitals and stuff at this point, it's still kind of a bit, but I will say this, the nurses and stuff are always like, here's what you have to do. They go into detail because they don't want to hear about it. But, and I think the gowns have come a long way or whatever, but they still, doesn't matter. They still do open in the back. But when she's telling you that, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, all right. That is, and again, I guess to be fair, this goes back to my whole thesis about it's good to have some sex in Star Trek. And I think this is definitely we want you to think about her butt right now or her back or whatever. But at the same time, but I also wrote down with sheer soliloquy because not only, and I didn't get as cringy with it, but I also thought it was like, we want to get this exposition out in some way that he's gonna change his strategy with her, but we can't. Who else would he tell on the ship or on the station? Mm-hmm. And so then it's like, this is like a Shakespeare. It's a soliloquy. It's not a Shakespearean soliloquy. You know what I mean? But I was like, this is a really weird moment in a whatever, a sci-fi show and syndication in the mid 90s. But so part of me enjoys the like, we're just going to do this. But obviously both of us were like, this is weird.
Well, and the cringy part to me is him like, well, I'm going to stop pursuing her and then she'll miss me and she'll come to me. And that's dude, the ego. Yeah.
Somebody's been, I'm trying to think of what the podcast I'm listening to lately where they were like, yeah, it's the whole, the nagging thing or whatever, or having a strategy or whatever, that kind of thing. Can't remember the term for the rest of it.
What saves it a little bit is if that's the way they went with the story, that Dax did eventually come to him because of that would be awful. And I'm really glad that's not what happened. But Dax is like, oh, good, he laid off. I'm good.
Well, I'll say, definitely in the 90s, around the time of this, I probably would have had that same strategy. I probably wouldn't have said it out loud to anybody. Well, not to myself, maybe to other people, but when you're young and you're an idiot. But, I think if it was delivered more of a, you know what, I got to kind of give this up and maybe she'll come around and see what a great guy I am. That's a different thing. But, we, like I said, the fact that we both were like, this is a weird thing in the middle of this episode that's not even about this thing. But, yeah.
Brian has a scene where he's climbing through the equivalent of a Jeffries tube on the Cardassian station, looking for something that's not on the scanner. And man, he gets a little bit too personal about his marriage on there. About, don't tell Keiko because she doesn't really want to know what's going on and all this. Like, whoa. Where's Deanna Troi? Where's the counselor on the station? Because you guys need some serious marital counseling.
Yeah, at length he goes. I'm just like, wow, this is... And maybe it was like, hey, everybody who's been wondering about this, we're going to give you what you want here. But yeah, that was... I agree. That was weird.
It was so weird. But I will say something they did right in that scene was that Sisko decided to send backup for him when he was going into a dangerous, stupid situation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I feel like so many times they don't send backup. And you come to regret it. So thank goodness Sisko is a captain with some sense in his head.
Yes, finally.
They find dead goop and said the goop needed more carbon dioxide to live. So that confirms it's not Odo, because Odo doesn't need more carbon dioxide to live. He can breathe just fine in there.
Oh, Bashir's the one who gets attacked with the tentacle, right?
As it comes down behind him, I was just like, behind you, Bashir! It's the horror movie trope.
I wrote tentacles, bad CGI, oh my. Because the tentacle, I was like, all right, that's okay. And then when the creature, when it went away, I was like, oh, that's terrible CGI. It was very 1994.
Was it CGI? Like, CGI was such a new thing.
Yeah, it was terrible animation.
Yeah, I'm not sure it was CGI.
Yeah.
Honestly. Yeah. I don't know what else you'd call it, but I don't think it was CGI.
Either way, it was not good. But
no,
didn't ruin the episode by any means, but yeah.
It was the best they could do at the time.
For sure.
Thank goodness they can do better now. So we got the idea that Odo's the criminal because the gas actually did affect him, just in a different way. Which begs the question: was this a trap set by his people for him?
Huh?
The gas affects a changeling in that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it kills humanoids, but they also decided. I mean, maybe they didn't think one of their people would come to it, but seriously, like that's super dangerous.
Interesting.
I don't know.
That's a good.
I mean, I guess that's spoiling a little bit that his people are super evil, but I think that's probably known at this point. I don't know how much you know, but I assume you know they're bad guys.
I did not know, but probably forget by then. But yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. So we get to a point in the episode where it seems like we may have to kill Odo, which, yeah, nobody takes that lightly, and I'm glad they don't. If anything, add more weight to it because it's Odo. But I appreciated very much that Dr. Morrow was like, I'll be the bait. Let's just go.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's to me like the point that he really puts the money where the mouth is, that he proves that he cares about Odo as more than a science experiment.
Well, and then this is where they, or at least eventually they zigged when I thought they were going to zag, because I wrote down, he's a dead man. He's done. We're never going to see more again, but we will. So, and I even wrote, I'll bet everything, which is a good thing.
Well, now you have nothing.
Yeah, there's a good thing. There was no place for me to place that bet. But yeah, I was sure like, nope, he's gone.
I would say that the bets you want to make based on the original series and next gen format are safe to make those bets in Voyager and Enterprise, but don't make them in DS9.
Yeah, okay, that's good to know.
Because DS9 is not. I feel like DS9 they managed this every time that they managed to convince the studio to give them a little bit of leash. They took it a lot of leash and ran with it, and they kept being told, you have limits. You need to stay within our format. And they kept saying, yeah, we'll do that. Look the other way. We're making 3-part episode over here.
Well, it's probably like, I would use the gambling thing, the playing with house money. Like, well, on the one hand, TNG's coming off, but we're building off, we're getting that jump off, but no one's really paying attention to us. In my mind, people knew about DS9. I'm sure it did fine back then, but
DS9 didn't do great. I'm surprised it got 7 seasons, quite honestly, because it was overlooked and ignored. It benefited. At the time, it was not considered a benefit. At the time, it was like, why are we the one nobody pays attention to?
Yeah.
But at the time, it really benefited from the studio and the producers that crossed between being really focused on building the end of the next gen and transitioning that into film, and Voyager being the new kid on the block that's all shiny and new. It became super, super popular, almost as popular as Next Gen. It was the number one show on satellite television for a while.
Yeah.
Whereas Next Gen was number one show on just television for a while.
Right.
And it was like the Friends or the MASH or the Cheers of its day. And so DS9 kept getting ignored because it went from this thing that everybody loves and is focused on to this new thing that everybody's going to focus on, and nobody paid attention to it.
So yeah, I think they kind of had the advantage and disadvantage of, well, no one's paying attention. Wait, no one. It's kind of like Letterman. That's what, and Conan O'Brien, the guys, and Seth Meyers to an extent as well. But the guys in that 12:30 spot are like, well, people are paying attention, but they're not paying attention. So we can get a little weirder. And obviously Letterman, he was ahead of everyone, so he got a lot more time to do that crazy kind of stuff. So I feel like, at least as far as I'm into the second season, it's like, all right, they get a little crazy. Crazy is not the right word, but we can do some different stuff here. Mora says to Odo, I'm still having trouble with social integration. I integrate as much as I want to. Mora, define as much as I want to. As much as I want to means as much as I want to, which I enjoy Odo defining a term with the term itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, that made me laugh.
Yeah, that was fun. And Odo apologizing to Mora. I mean, I could see some people having a problem with him apologizing, but I don't, because I think Odo let some personal feelings that were developed at a time where he was confused and wasn't sure what was going on. It's not his judgment. And now with some clarity, he looked back and Mora wasn't such a bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, that's a nice positive development. And again, like my feeling the whole time was like, oh, this Mora guy's evil. He did something wrong. I'm sure he did. And again, and on some level, there was some stuff that wasn't cool, but
I think that was established to be pretty much before they knew he was sentient. Once he knew he was sentient, they changed tactics. And they did not continue to hold him prisoner. When he wanted to leave, they let him leave.
Yeah.
And I like him saying, like, I was upset at you for leaving, but it was the right decision, and I'm glad to see you thriving. That really is a parent that let go and wants to see their kid doing well in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a weird, and maybe this is, I don't know if this is old TV or new TV, but it's right before we go to one of the commercials, but there's a stinger, and Odo, they slow him down, like almost in slow motion. I think TBS still does it. They speed up Seinfeld or they used to speed up Seinfeld just slightly. So then it would fit. So they have to cut things. They could fit in another couple commercials in every hour. So it wasn't noticeable.
So a lot of the old sitcoms have stuff cut out so they can fit those extra commercials. Yeah. So I'd rather they speed it up a little bit personally.
And it's noticeable or at least to me, on when I see it on Instagram or YouTube or some other places, depending on where the people grabbed it from, because their voices go to a higher level. So it's like, and it's like, okay, they're sped up enough that you can pick that up, but it's not ridiculous. Yeah, for some reason that happened here. I'm not sure why. There's some point where, when Odo's kind of doing literal meltdown that he does, his fingers get kind of hot doggy, which made me think of Everything Everywhere All at Once has a whole...
They ripped off Star Trek.
Yeah. They have a whole one of the universes. It's all hot dog fingers. So I think they saw this episode.
It wouldn't surprise me.
I have 2 notes left, but the one was just like, I thought the ending just got crazy, but again, not in a bad way. We gotta get Odo. We gotta fry him in this thing and da 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 da. But and then my alternate episode was the other Odo, the offshoot of Odo, is shifting every 15 minutes. He has to shift every 12, 16 hours? Is that what they say?
I think it's like 16 hours, and then he melts for 8 or whatever to make it kind of like humanoid. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wrote, if he could do that if that was happening every 16 minutes, then just at least for the other form or whatever, the other Odo, the Odo that was exposed to the gas. And that
was directed by David Carson, who we've talked about before. The story was by Bill Dial and Jim Trombetta, teleplay by Bill Dial. Jim Trombetta, we've also discussed. He actually wrote the last episode of DS9 that we just watched. But Bill Dial, I believe, is a new name. He is best known for being a producer on Earth Force, Legman, Codename Foxfire, and Simon & Simon. So one of those I've heard of. He wrote 2 episodes of DS9, this being the first one, the second one coming at the end of this season, and he wrote 1 episode of Voyager as well. That's all I got. I guess my alternate episode would just be, I don't know, I really don't necessarily want to make an alternate episode. Maybe, alternate scene perhaps. And this is just goofy, but a bit of Odo gets like broken off as they fix him. And Quark saves it in a little jar and puts it on display behind his
I love that. That's great.
I mean, that's all I can think to add to it, because I don't want to change the episode in any significant way.
Well, he gets enough and he splits it in a bunch of pieces, and he tries to sell it back to Quark, back to Odo.
Well, the one piece first. There's lots of pieces, but there's really only one. He keeps the one authentic one for himself, and the rest are fake.
I like it.
Who is your shady character?
I kind of alluded to this earlier, and this is a tribute to Mr. Sloyan. It's Mora. And, Orion, you can kind of be like, well, this guy ran a shady lab and stuff, but I'm attributing that because he's my shady and he's my annoying. And I think that's just because that's my pre-Sloyan bias. So, in which I give it as credit to that actor that things I've seen him in, he's always been so good at being kind of a sleazy guy that you can't trust. So that's where I'm going. But yeah,
I mean, I'm gonna give Bashir the shady for hiding Dax's clothes.
That's the good
and coming up with a secret plan to get her to fall for him, and also him annoying because I found his secret plan super creepy. So I'm gonna go with Bashir for both.
And again, to get back to Bashir's soliloquy, if he just left it as, well, two can play at that game, or, I'm going to play hard to get, or whatever,
Yeah.
or to quote Spock, sauce for the goose, then that would have been, better, but that could have been better. But Bashir, he's not out of the woods yet, even though we're liking him.
No, but he's getting there. Like,
Yeah.
this episode was almost a step backwards from where he's grown.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any more steps backwards, but I don't want you to quote me on that because it's been a while.
Yeah, because of course you should be attracted to Dax, but we hadn't had that conversation had to come. Oh, we're good. Okay.
You can be attractive without being a creep.
Yes.
Carrie Farrell is a very attractive woman, and the way they've done Dax's makeup makes her, if anything, more attractive. But
that's a good point.
You don't have to rule on her like Bashir.
For sure. Yeah.
Who are you having a drink with?
Odo.
Of course. Agreed.
Yeah. Didn't they have the conversation about the glass that was Odo?
The vial, the test tube.
Yeah. Which is, I know one of the episodes I said I wanted to have a drink, or our previous episode.
A drink out of Odo?
I wanted to have a drink, and Odo was going to be the one holding my drink. Yeah. So, not in this instance. Odo,
that's mean.
Fully capable.
Even though he doesn't drink, he's the one that, to me, having a drink is that sitting and having the conversation, and he's the one that needs to sit and have the conversation. Wrecking the episode, so I guess Keith is not showing up this week.
Doesn't look like maybe this week.
Wrecking the episode, let's start somewhat near the top. Let's start with Necessary Evil. Better or worse? I think it's below that.
Yeah, as I read it, yeah. Oh, yeah, and our Kira Nerys and all that stuff, yeah.
Nerys. Yeah.
Nerys, yeah, old friend.
Below that is The Siege.
I think we're getting close. I could be pushed either way here, but...
Yeah, I kind of think we should go above it, but I'm not... But I could easily be swayed to below it, but I think we're in the right range for sure.
Yeah.
Below that is Cardassians.
Oh, wow. I put this above that. It's a similar kind of, not feel, but...
Yeah.
Getting to know these people. I mean, it's literally called Cardassians, so yeah.
Go above it too, but only slightly.
Yeah.
So do we want to put it above or below The Siege? It's one thing if we disagree and make Keith do it, but neither one of us has staked it up.
Yeah. Gun to my head, phaser to my head, I'd say under, but we can always just make Keith come in.
Let's do it under. Let's do it under.
Okay.
Unless Keith feels strongly, but someone always punt to him.
That's a good call.
Sweet. Back to the Enterprise D, we're doing Homeward in an attempt to preserve a race of people on a planet being bombarded by storms that would kill them. Worf's foster brother violates the Prime Directive, leaving the Enterprise crew in a difficult position. Until then, live long.
And you know what? Be yourself even when you're pretending or shape-shifting to be somebody else. Be yourself and prosper.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?